The next rhetorical appeal that we want to talk about is ethos. This is the term that we get the word ethics from. And so this has to do with the ethical appeal, appealing to the sense of ethics that our readers have. And so there are two major types of ethical appeal. One is appeal to character, giving us a sense of the character of the author. Do we trust them? Are they trustworthy because they're honest and fair? Are they trustworthy because they have a trustworthy tone? And then another way to be trustworthy is to include what is called counter-arguing. That means that we show what the opposing side might argue, and we include concessions as well as rebuttals. We don't want to agree with everything that the opposing side says. That was not persuasive, but we can concede certain things to them, right? And so we can concede to somebody who disagrees with us certain points, and then they're more likely to listen to us. We can make qualifications. We can include caveats, things that sort of limit the extent to what we're saying. And then we can also use what I like to call, or I've learned to call, the steel man strategy. So there's a fallacy called the straw man fallacy, where you kind of make out that the opposing side is saying something they're not really saying, and you make them look really ridiculous. But anybody who really knows their point of view is not going to be persuaded by that. The steelman strategy is the opposite. You are going to give the best arguments of the opposing side and try to argue it better than they could argue it themselves, and then still show them why they're wrong. And so that takes a lot of confidence in your position. And it's the kind of confidence that shows that you're willing to give a little, you're willing to concede a little, you're willing to show the strongest ideas. And that makes you seem more trustworthy as an author, as a writer. Now, the other is appeal to credibility. And this is where you're trustworthy because of your authority on a subject. So is the author an expert in the field? For instance, in Grit, Angela Lee Duckworth, the author, she is a professor of psychology. She has her PhD in the subject, but she's been through some very highly prestigious schools, right? She teaches in an Ivy League university, the University of Pennsylvania, and she's written this book. She has this TED Talk. And so she's somebody who is recognizable as an expert or an authority in the field of grit and psychology. Is the author associated with trustworthy institutions or publications? And so again, the University of Pennsylvania is an Ivy League college. She's gone to Ivy League institutions as a student as well. And so those give her credibility as an authority in the subject. So, and I forgot to change this to say grit, but there's some examples from Grit are an appeal to character. So Duckworth humbly shares her own previous misconceptions with readers. She says, when I first started interviewing Grit paragons, I assumed they'd all have stories about the singular moment when suddenly they discovered their God-given passion. And then she goes on to refute that assumption. So by being humble, she helps us to say, oh, okay, she's like us. She's discovering the truth. She's willing to admit when she makes mistakes. She's willing to admit that she had faulty reasoning before. And because she's willing to admit this, when she says this is true, I'm more willing to accept it as convincing, as trustworthy. In terms of credibility, I already mentioned a lot of this. If you look at just the back cover, this is just a short list of things that she's achieved, right? But she's at an Ivy League university and a professor of psychology. She's won a MacArthur Fellowship in 2013, which is also known as the Genius Grant. She's founded a nonprofit, and she's advised Fortune 500 companies. She's advised NFL and NBA teams. She's advised the White House. And so she's been asked by people that we recognize and respect. And she's been asked for them for her advice, for her help. And so we can say, wow, she has a lot of authority on this subject. She also spends a lot of time in the book describing her own research. So we know that she's an authority because she's done her own original research on this. But she also includes the research of other psychologists. And this is important because when you're trying to show you're credible, you want to show that you're not the only one who has come to this kind of conclusion. And so if you can include other people who agree with you, that actually strengthens your credibility. It doesn't weaken it. So we'll continue by talking about our power up rhetorical appeal kairos in just a moment. But I just want to point out that these are the three main ones, right? That logos, you want to have logic; pathos, you want emotion; and ethos, you want to have that trustworthiness for your reader.